Madam Chairman, we're left.
Good morning and welcome to our September 11th meeting of Valley County Commissioners. First on our agenda today, we will do our Pledge of Allegiance. I think today it holds special significance, it being 9/11. You'll join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As we begin our day today, I want to acknowledge how heavy it is in our country today. 9/11 is always a special day that we need to remember that what happened to our country, that feeling of pulling together and all being Americans. I think today that we can think about that, pull together. I think we need to pledge on a day that's as heavy as today to do good together, work together. I think that it's important that we recognize that we can work together and have differences of opinion, but violence is never a way that we solve our issues. I recently had a conversation with someone that has a different political philosophy than I, and after being at a public hearing, he said, I felt that I had to go home and lock my doors. And I know that we all feel that. So I think as a region, we need to pledge that we will work together. This is not who we are. This is our job. This is what we do is for a living. And if we can set aside our personal issues, making sure that we take care of each other, we love each other, we respect each other every single day, I think that that is the most important thing that we can do for our region. We're taking care of our constituents and our neighbors. So I just want to make sure that we're prioritizing that in our lives, that we pledge that we will love each other and that we will work together into the future. So heavy day in our country today, and we will work to do better. All right, we are going to, first of all, on the agenda, if I can find my agenda, is the Tamarack approval. Linda, this is the final plat. Will you go ahead and make sure that you can assure us that everything has been completed as agreed?
Yes, this is Tamarack Resort Planned Unit Development Phase 3.6 Aspen Townhomes. This is the culmination of the PUD amendment and the approval of the townhome preliminary plat. Financial guarantees are not required at this time because they have prepaid the completion and those infrastructure is just about complete. They've actually submitted building permits for the townhomes, but those will not be issued until the sanitary restrictions are released. There's still some items they have to finalize there. But that's the catch-all for the sanitary restrictions still in force. And these are going to be a built product versus something that they would sell individually to some unsuspecting lot owner that didn't know sanitary restrictions were in place. So I did prepare a motion for you that kind of outlines everything that needs to be approved, including an acceptance of a public right-of-way along West Mountain Road for 0.906 acres. And then validation of Dockside Circle as the new private road within the boundaries of Tamarack PUD.
Chairman Maupin, before we go any further, I do need to state that I need to recuse myself from this item due to a family member being under contract.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Is there any other questions on this matter?
I'm just trying to find it here so I can pull it up.
I've got it. I move to approve the final plat for Tamarack Resort Planned Unit Development Phase 3.6 Aspen Townhome, validate Dockside Circle as a new private road that will be added to the official road name and maps for Valley County, acknowledge the owner's declaration of private roads, acknowledge the owner's declaration of installation of utilities with the understanding that final occupancy of any structure will not be given until utilities are in place for that particular phase, and a letter is received from the owner's engineer stating all improvements. were completed according to approved plans. Acknowledge that improvements have been prepaid and additional financial guarantees will not be required. Acknowledge the supplemental declaration for Tamarack Resort Phase 3.6. Accept the supplemental annexation declaration for Tamarack Resort. Accept the warranty deed for .09 or .906 acres of public right-of-way along West Mountain Road. Acknowledge Central District Health Letter did not release sanitary restrictions, and that sanitary restrictions will be released prior to issuance of building permits through approvals with North Lake Recreational Sewer and Water District, and authorize the chairman to sign the plat. This motion is made with the understanding the Valley County Board of Commissioners have the sole discretion to set the level of service for any public road. The level of service can be changed.
And I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Oh, I'm gonna come
Here are
sign.
the Mylars to sign, and then they'll take them and wait for Lori to come in to record them.
Yeah. That was easy. You're doing.
Okay, with.
Great.
Okay, up next, we will take the discussion and make a final determination of the City of McCall's request for reconsideration. So the city sent a letter on August 26th requesting that we reconsider the decision on the boundary proposal. And since we did need to respond to this, I can't remember the actual date. I think it was September 20th.
I just,
Was our date?
I was just reading it.
So what's the question?
What was the date we needed to respond on the
I believe the deadline was September 20th.
20th? That's what I remember also. So that is the reason for the meeting today, so that we could actually address this prior to the end of the consideration time. So first of all, I just want to state the county does support collaboration between the county and McCall in determining the impact area boundaries, but the law is clear that the jurisdiction and decision regarding the impact area remains with the county. This decision that we are required to make is a legislative decision. It gives the board broad discretion of what information it relies on when making the decision. McCall's request for reconsideration did not raise any issues that would require modification to the decision to deny the request, and a written explanation from this board will follow on the denial. Do I have a motion on the decision?
I move to deny the request for reconsideration that was received from the City of McCall on August 20th, 2025, subject to approval of the written decision.
Second.
Is there any further discussion of the motion?
I have none.
Hearing,
No, I don't have any.
okay, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So we have denied the determination for the City of McCall's request for reconsideration, and there will be a written reason statement sent to the city on that behalf. Up next is the discussion around ordinance 2025-06, the McCall Area Impact Boundary change to the Valley County Code 7-1-612. and deliberation on this. So I want to state for the public, we continue to hear in meetings that, why is this rushed? This discussion began, 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, when there was a initial meeting with the city on the current impact area. And the city stated, no, we don't want to make any changes. And at that time, we raised the fact that there is legislation pending that will severely change the discussion between the city and the county. And that was basically, we were told, no, it won't change. I had read the legislation. I knew that we were going to change. So in July 1st, when that change happened at the legislature, we began work sessions together. So we called a work session on September 7th, 2024, and asked for the city's map. What is it that you would like to see? And there was a discussion there. Start small, make sure that this is going to meet the current legislation. We didn't get anything, and we started the conversation again in January of 25, saying we really need to move this forward. This is time sensitive. We have a lot of work to do together before that happens. So the next joint work session was March 3rd. We had another one on May 5th. Then McCall requested their boundary modification May 16th. We received the letter stating that the McCall needed an answer within the 90 days. It flagged that 90-day period. We conducted another public hearing July 7th. We've had another one August 6th. Reconsideration request. This has been going on a long time. We've been having this conversation. We have been talking together and trying to work together during this entire process. And so this is not a quick decision. This has been something that has been in the works. Conversation started 2.5 years ago during a public meeting. So I want to bring that up. Specifically in the area of impact legislation, there were some very specific guidelines that were given to us by the legislature. The way that county government works, we are the ones that implement state code. We don't always like state code. We don't always like the way that it's put in place. There's been a number of things that we've gone back to the legislature on saying, please, this is impossible for the counties to impact. But this one was made with very specific intent because they felt that cities were starting to overreach with their impact areas. They were becoming areas where it was a no-growth boundary, openly stated on by some cities. These are the areas, this is where we want to stop growth coming to us. And so the legislature acted on that. And the people that live in these impact areas don't vote for city councils. They vote for county commissioners. And so they felt their voice was being stifled and unheard. And that becomes a property rights issue. And I think that was a lot of the reasoning behind what the legislature did. But they stated very specifically, the county, the area of impact must be where growth is going to be in the near future. The jurisdiction for the impact areas is the responsibility of the counties. All of the cities are entitled to receive notification of land use hearings and provide input to the county. But the county commissioners have always made the final decisions on areas of impact boundaries and areas of what's happening in those boundaries. So it's always remained at the county's final decision. It's never been that of the cities. And I think that that's been something that's been lost in the conversation. So we have looked at the areas that are most important, the specific requirements. And the final boundaries that we are requesting are based on where's growth and development expected to occur in the next 5 years. So we looked specifically at all of the data that was created by the city of McCall. They created a lot of the data for us. We didn't have to hire a separate entity to do this work. And we also received a lot of testimony from the agencies that were doing that. So the residential growth showing in the city of McCall's annexation, or their data that was given to us, they're showing residential growth in areas currently zoned as RR, R1, and R2. Those are large parcels on the very outskirts of the city. That may or may not grow into it eventually. Those areas are ones that, however, will not grow within the next 5 years. That's the important window here. This is very likely to grow into the next 5 years. The areas that are showing on the city's map, those are not areas that the city would ever annex and grow into in the next 50 years. For some of those stuff that's way out. We looked at growth for commercial growth. In their map, it's showing in an area that's not to be served with sewer anytime within the next 10 years. We have testimony to that from the sewer district. That these areas are ones that the sewer district has no growth pattern. It's not in their master plan. There are no plans to grow outside of those. The city's map shows areas where it's already very dense. Those areas are not going to be incorporated into the city and annexed into the city. Annexation for a city now, it has to be an area where the residents actually vote to annex themselves. That can happen now. We don't need to wait for that. But that impact area boundary is one where it needs to show where growth will happen, not has happened. So we looked at that extensively, and our map and boundary is based on large development parcels. Where could these areas happen? The only way that sewer right now is going to be improved and upgraded and the district annex new areas is where a developer is willing to pay for those upgrades. It's not going to be based upon individual areas where it's currently, they have septic in them because the services are already there. And so we looked at large areas. Our map specifically identifies areas where development can occur. Geographic factors. So a lot of the city's data talked about geographic factors and the lake and the health of the lake. Valley County concurs. We are currently working on an upgrade to our waterway ordinance, our water ordinance, which will basically mimic a lot of what McCall has in there. And waterways, however, is not just Payette Lake. It's all of the waterways in Valley County. This will be a protection of all of our water bodies in Valley County. And that's important to us. It's not just one lake, it's all of our lakes. And McCall is sensitive because of the drinking water. The county commits that we are working with them, asked to work with them. We are working with Valley Soil and Water to improve our ordinance. But the existing ordinance will remain in place until such time as our ordinance is updated. And we are working on that right now. We will have an ordinance update soon on the water, environmental ordinances that are important for the environment. And so we're committed to that also. That was one of the concerns that we heard most about is the geographic boundary of the lake and who's going to control that lake. The transportation infrastructure. We already deal with all of the transportation routes for Valley County. We maintain the roadways. So the connectivity will not change. Doesn't matter whose jurisdiction that's under. So that to us, we already maintain all of the roads. The transit system is already a regional transit, so we all deal with that anyway. Again, one of the areas, the one that is very specific and was specifically put in is where are their municipal services or where are they anticipated in the next 5 years. So there is no planned expansion unless it is development properties. So the sewer district was very clear and precise in their conversations twice with us, that there are no plans to step outside their boundaries. There's also a lot of work to do on the sewer and water for upgrades to the system. The city just passed a water bond, which is going to upgrade some areas. In the next 5 years, we will look at that again in 5 years from now to find out where those upgrades have occurred, where sewer and water expansion is planned. That will make a big difference in the next 5 years for the next 5-year consideration of this plan. The other public service district boundaries, police officer response has been brought up a lot. We already have an MOU with the city. There is no jurisdiction outside the city footprint for their police officers. It does require that a sheriff and police work together in that impact area. I'm hoping that we will continue that. That's worked well for public safety and for officer safety. That's why that's there. And then lastly, can't go beyond 2 miles of the existing city limits. So that is why the boundary consideration is there. I would like to address for a minute, there's been a lot of questions and why the county is going to be taking back this area for county ordinances and implementation at the county level. First of all, in our reading of the legislation, it's very specific in what it says. This is under the jurisdiction of the county, county code, county jurisdiction. So that is the way that we are reading that. There's been a lot of statements you haven't given us good reason. And I personally know that the city and I have had personal conversations about the reasons why this also needs to come back into the county jurisdiction. So I will do some very high level statements on this. I don't think it's necessary that we have any kind of confrontational situation between the city and the county. I think we can work together as partners into the future. One of the things, though, is when ordinances have been adopted, those ordinances have come to us for approval without our input. When training is happening, it is not happening with the county, so that the county also influences training for planning and zoning and those types of things. We do that as a body here. We have joint trainings between planning and zoning and commissioners. So we have no voice at that level. When planning and zoning meetings are happening, we don't have legal representation there to say, hey, it's not legal. Hey, we get a lot of information from the legal realm on laws and the way interpretation of laws. We talk through those things a lot, and we have none of that when we're not at the table for planning and zoning and for even decisions that are being made there. So what came down at the end of a lot of conversation is the county would need to hire another lawyer and be involved in the planning and zoning meetings, be involved at training sessions, and help empower the legal requirements of decisions that are being made in this impact area. I personally don't think that that should be placed upon the residents of Valley County for the expenses to do that when it's easy to do it within our own realm here and under our own authority. That's, to us, that is the way the legislation is being written, and without having to add extra burden to the county taxpayers. There's been a lot of things that we've heard from residents, and we are listening. And so we're taking into account the concerns that people have expressed at the meetings. One of the things that I really want to talk about is the fact that a lot of the concerns are addressed with, we like the architectural controls. We will have a conversation about architectural controls. There's some things I would like to do at the county for architectural controls. That will be in the next phase. We will ask citizens to engage. Luke Vinoy was at the last meeting as an architect. He specifically addressed some things that I think should be addressed in county code. He's agreed to serve on a committee, and we will pull together some committees in order to address some of the issues and concerns that residents have. So I'm committed to doing that. We'll start those meetings in December, January, in order to get those into our next revision of the comp plan. The comp plan is a moving document all the time. We've been working on one for a long time. We've asked planning and zoning to get it done. That comp plan hopefully is going to be heard in October and put into place, so we can begin on some revisions after that. This is an update to the comp plan. It's not a full revision. And so we will look for those. But we will also work with our community partners and get input and look at the codes and the zoning or the codes and the ordinances that people are concerned about. So we do make that pledge that we are working on that, and we'll work with individuals with those specific skill sets to help us develop some of those. I think, though, just a couple of the things that the reconsideration called out was we don't have any technical data. Well, we do have technical data. We've used the cities. They provided a ton of technical data. We didn't necessarily agree with the analysis of that technical data. It doesn't mean that we don't have it and we didn't look at it. We also have the testimony from the agencies involved in this. And so that was the biggest consideration. If you have an agency saying, we're not going to annex this, we can't provide sewer and water, and so it can't be annexed in the next 5 years, that's a large statement. And remember, again, this legislation calls for this conversation to continue. This is a 5-year plan. 5 years from now, we will look back and say, these are the areas that the city actually grew into. These are the areas that have been incorporated. From there, we will make another 5-year plan. Those are the areas that I would like to highlight. Commissioner Thompson.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Walken. I'm an individual who likes history, and I always kept asking questions as to why we are in the fix that we are in, and how did we get here? And when it went back, and it's not just our city, it's the city of McCall, it's many cities across the state of Idaho that have unfortunately stepped out of their lane, not by any fault of their own, but by not following state law, and the counties that didn't enforce that state law. And the city had had the ability to grow areas due because of 40 or 50 years ago, the commissioners allowed the city to govern the impact areas. You just heard from Commissioner Maupin that that's not the way the state statute is written. And this is against the state statute where the separation of county and city land use was imperative to stay separate. And I'm going to read just one little comment here from Senator Todd Lakey, who rewrote this statute, and it kind of clears up a lot of stuff in my mind and in the cities also as to why we're doing what we're doing now, and basically doing a reset on how our cities and the counties operate together. And first and foremost, the legislation makes it very clear that the decision regarding where the area of impact boundary is located is a decision to be made by the county commissioners. Case law is clear that the county has jurisdiction outside the city limits, and the city has jurisdiction within the city limit boundaries. Those two separations have to stay in place. The AOI lies outside city limits, and therefore the city has no jurisdiction. Citizens that live in the AOI do not vote for anything that has to do with city council members. They can only vote for county commissioners. The legislation lays out a cooperative process along with public hearings to establish the AOI, but it is ultimately the county's decision. That is well described in the legislative intent in Idaho Code Section 67-6526(1). This is also the reason the county ordinance and comprehensive plan are to apply in their AOI. The legislation notes the ability of the county to have specific provisions in their comprehensive plan and ordinances pertaining to specific AOIs. So what we're doing, in my opinion, and it's really not my opinion, it's state law, is that we are just setting things in the process to be in order so that us and the cities can work together very cooperatively. And as the city decides to take in an area of impact and say we want to grow into here, we're going to take city services into this area of impact, whichever one it may be, then we work right along with them. And it gives people that live in the area of impact a solid, we know the county governs everything in the area impact, and that people that live in the city, they know it, they can go to their city council and everything is governed by them. And it clears up this muddled mess that we've had for way too many years. So I think that what we're doing is going to be a very good thing. A lot of people have a lot of concern, and a lot of people are tickled that it's being done. So you are going to get always both sides, no matter how this works. But it's, I believe what we're doing is going to set this ship straight, and it'll be a lot easier for both entities from here on out. That's all I have.
Commissioner Caldwell.
Thank you. A lot of the comments that have already been made by Commissioner Maupin and Thompson are ones that I thoroughly agree with. They were both here when the process started, and I unfortunately ended up coming in just through how election cycles work to come in more of the middle of this process. But that also helped because I was able to come in at a time when the legislature had really charged us to follow the Idaho Code under Title 67 on how to address this area of impact. And from the beginning, I felt that the code was very clear and gave us a very direct charge on how to move forward with this area of impact. One thing I also want to note, though, is this isn't a forever area of impact. One thing I like about this legislation is it charges us to continue collaboration with the city, not just here in 2025, but as we continue on every 5 years to make sure that this area of impact is appropriate and is representative of what growth may happen outside of not only McCall, but also Cascade and Donley. Throughout this process of working with all three cities, as a board of commissioners, I believe we have worked on the grassroots level and really listened to some and to all of our constituents. Landowners who have asked to be included in the area of impact have been included. We were very sensitive to that and wanted to make sure that people who felt that they had the opportunity for growth and needed to be within that area of impact were included. And this goes on the other side too. We also listened to constituents who felt very confidently that they did not want to be in the area of impact because there were no annexation pathways, or they didn't want to be annexed, or there was just no opportunity for growth within the next 5 years. The code also gave us some very direct factors to look at, which Commissioner Maupin covered very clearly. But a couple of them that I just want to note is under the anticipated commercial and residential growth. Again, we did include several parcels within every city that had asked to be placed within the AOI at the request of the landowner. And then under geographic factors, we've heard several times from many constituents that Pitt Lake is a big concern, and it's a concern for the Board of County Commissioners as well. We are definitely committed to the safety of the drinking water and will continue to work for that safety through implementing a riparian area overlay around Pitt Lake and the other water bodies of Valley County to help control and implement water quality standards. And then I think one of the biggest factors that the legislature made very clear was areas where where municipal or public sewer and water are expected to be provided within 5 years. We've heard direct testimony from both the sewer district and the water district that boundaries are not foreseen to be expanded within the next 5 years. But again, this is not a final document. This is not a final AOI for or into perpetuity. This is something that we will continue to work on every 5 years. And so I think if that changes, then the area of impact can change as well. I just want to thank everyone for participating in this process. And those are the end of my comments.
Okay. If there is no further discussion, by the way, after we vote on this, there is some questions that one of the constituents brought up during our last public meeting that she would like addressed, and we will address those after this vote.
I have a question. It doesn't specifically reference this. This map. How is that?
Does the ordinance. Does.
Ordinance does? Okay.
And then the meets and bounds will be added after.
Okay, that was the question I had then. Just want to make sure that that was referenced. Go ahead and make the motion now.
Yep.
Okay, I will make a motion to approve ordinance number 2025-06, City of McCall Impact Area Boundary as heard, subject to approval of the written decision with an effective date of January 1, 2026, after publication with the understanding that meetings and bounds description will be inserted prior to codification.
I have a
Second.
I moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We will work with the city on a transition period to make sure that everything transitions for our residents and that we come up with processes to make this happen correctly. So I gave my commitment. I'm sorry. This mouse. That's fine. Whenever you're ready. I gave my commitment to someone that we would address her concerns that were not addressed at the public hearing. So please explain why you don't prioritize and commit to developing a countywide zoning map and ordinances. So we will have this discussion. Personally, I am in favor of a countywide zoning map. I've never not stated that. We will work on that as we move forward to see if other commissioners, as we evolve in the next few years, feel that that is time to do that. As far as ordinances, I believe that we are in the process of that and will continue to develop ordinances that that will provide some kind of I don't know, the concerns that we've heard that were voiced. I think that we can address those concerns for all of Valley County, though, not just for specific areas. I would like to see all of Valley County protected. So those are things that we will address as we move forward. You guys have other things to say on number one?
I know. I think it was made pretty clear in our discussions on the first one.
And we are zoned. I mean, we have a multi-use zone, so it's not that we're not unzoned. We are zoned. It's just one zone.
And I'll be honest with you, Commissioner Moblin, I don't know enough about zoning. I know we're one of two counties, I believe, in the whole state that do not have zones. So Neil would have to have a lot of education before I address that issue.
One thing that I'll comment on zoning is there's definitely two sides to this conversation, and there are a lot of people who are not interested in having a more of a traditional zoning within the county, because that essentially gives the Board of County Commissioners the opportunity to set property values for those landowners. And so I think it's a much larger conversation, and the other side of the argument needs to be heard as well. I think it would be a very challenging and technical process for us as commissioners. And I don't know that I want to be the person setting the winners and the losers in terms of property values, which is what may happen if we were to zone.
I think that will be a conversation moving forward. It is a very large conversation. It's a very financially burdensome conversation because we would have to hire people to do that and a lot of work to do it. But personally, I would like to see us do that. But please explain why you won't put a moratorium in place. I don't think a moratorium is needed on this issue. We are working toward redoing ordinances. As we work, I think we can do both at the same time. Ordinances require that there be an emergency in the county and be put in place for up to 6 months. Something has to be resolved within that 6-month period. But I don't think that we need a moratorium in order to resolve the issues that have been addressed. I think we can work in tandem and continue down the path.
And I totally agree with that because to me, that's a knee-jerk reaction. It would have to be warranted to do any moratorium of any sort. And we are not there.
Please share what data you used and direct feedback you received from your constituents to decide to repeal the McCall AOI zoning ordinances and regulations and replace them with the county's single multi-use zone coupled with a highly subjective compatibility matrix. I think that's what we just talked about. So I think we just had that conversation as part of our discussion. If the compatibility matrix is not something that people think is meeting the goal, give us input. Look at it and give us direction and design, and we can look at that compatibility matrix for improvement. Please explain how you will protect the property rights of my family and your many constituents who have voiced similar concerns. First of all, property rights are subjective because we get this in every land use hearing. My property rights are going to be impacted. That is what we do. We mitigate any impacts to people's property rights. But in this specific instance, I believe she lives in a subdivision, and your CC&Rs and your HOA actually have a lot more to do with protecting your property rights, making sure what's happening in your subdivision. So I don't know how else you guys would answer that.
I don't either. Everything we try to do protects property rights on every decision that we make up here. And that's what I try to do and try to make sure that that's put in place. Do we fail sometimes? I'm sure we do. But that's our first and foremost reason for the decisions we make, protect people's personal property rights.
Commissioner Caldwell, do you have any input?
I would agree with Commissioner Thompson that that's always first and foremost in dealing with land use issues. But we do have to consider the current property property's rights and the future property owner's rights.
Yep.
And then this question comes up a lot. Please explain why you don't provide the option for live testimony via phone or video at public hearings. So we have always had people in person because we are not in control of the video and audio. I mean, if internet goes down, then we lose the whole meeting. If for some reason the telephone is not available or we can't hear someone, we have a legal obligation to make a record for any kind of court, proceedings after the fact of these meetings. And it is much more difficult to do. We had problems even in McCall this last time because the video and the audio was not working correctly. That requires someone to be at every single meeting to do that work, to make sure that it's constantly recording. We had an issue yesterday. YouTube didn't pick up for a portion of our meeting. And so then we have to go back and try and figure out what we need for legislative proceedings moving forward. So we are legally obligated to have a record, and those records are controlled here within the courthouse. And that's why we don't do that. We just had too many instances in the past where we have been unable to do that. State code says that we have to have a recording, which is the clerk's recording. And so we, as transparency for the county, have made the decision to always put on YouTube all of our meetings so everyone can hear what is heard. We go way above transparency issues and the state requirements on what is required for participation. So we feel like we do that to be transparent as possible. Everything we do is recorded and shared, so.
We do take emails, written comments, and all of that.
And as Cinda stated, we do take written testimony. We read every email that we receive, and sometimes we receive hundreds. So those are all a part of the record. As we move forward, you always have the opportunity to email us or to put in written testimony, so. Okay, I made a commitment to do that. I think the next thing that we'll need to get together and do for us is have a conversation about a transition plan. So will be next on the agenda. And then again, continued conversations. This is not the commissioners taking over and our egos are wanting to take over. Egos don't become a part of anything that we do. Again, this is our job. We are implementing state statute. And this is an ongoing conversation. This is having cities and counties work together in a shortened time frame. It used to be 10 years. It's 5 years now with very specific sets of criteria. We want every one of our cities to be successful. We want every one of our cities to have good growth. That's where growth should occur, where there is municipal services. Valley County is different in that. We have a lot of municipal services outside of city boundaries. However, there is nothing that this is a county takeover. We've heard that, and that's just absolutely not the basis for this. This is making sure that we're all working together to make the best Valley County that we can possibly make. All three cities and the unincorporated areas, we all create one entity that we all live under. And it's just, we are implementing the state code as we see it. When I raised my hand and put it on the Bible, I knew there would be difficult days. This is one of those difficult days. When I made a pledge to enforce state code and county code, I knew that there would be difficult days. And there have been, and there will be, and there are. And this is one of them. Personally, we take a lot of hits for this. Again, this is what I do for a living. This is not who I am. It's not my life goals to be a county commissioner and do this work. And so it's something that we need to tone down the rhetoric on personal attacks, especially right now when it's such a heavy time in the world. We can do this work together. We should do this work together. And let's just make that pledge as we move forward. So,
Commissioner Caldwell, can Sherry sign on your behalf?
Yes.
okay, that being the completion of this, we will move on to our next agenda item.
Which
Thank
is
you
not,
for,
not until 11 o'clock.
which is not until 11 o'clock. So we will mute until 11 o'clock.
Okay.